Heyo everybody, welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Kayz, and today we are going to actually be doing a traditional piece of art, which is not something I normally do. Now you can kind of see the finished product here because I'm recording this after I recorded the Speedpaint. However, this isn't actually the finished product, it's the back of the paper of the finished product. I always find it interesting to look at the back of alcohol marker drawings because just to see the way that it bleeds. Sometimes markers don't bleed as much, sometimes they do. And then there's also all the details that you put on top that don't get to make it through the bleeded paper. Now this isn't normal paper, this is alcohol marker paper, so that's why it's not fully like bled through. But yeah, so I just always find that interesting, and at the end of this video you'll get to see what the final piece looks like. Of course you'll also have seen some of it in the thumbnail as well, so yeah, it's not going to be that much of a surprise. But yeah, so I'm also, just before we start, I just wanted to show you guys the brands of stuff that I'm going to be using for this video. There's just all these different brands. There's this one for alcohol marker. This is another alcohol marker, Copic. There's this alcohol marker, which is upside down. An Artist Loft. And Touch 5. And I also used Crayola pencil crayons. Yeah, so I guess we'll just get into the Speedpaint then, and I will tell you the rest of this video's story then. Okay, so I guess you all are wondering what it is exactly that I'm drawing right now, because at the moment it kinda just looks like a blob. Well, those who know me know that I have a soft spot for abandoned places. Just like Lost Media, it's just something I find very fascinating and interesting. There's so much mystery and stories in abandoned places, and the aesthetics are a welcome mix of creepy, cool, and beautiful. It just gives me a sort of melancholy feeling. So after binging a bunch of abandoned exploration videos, I decided I wanted to draw another abandoned setting, and I chose to draw an abandoned theme park overcome by natural vegetation. So here we have an abandoned roller coaster car thing. I wanted to make it look creepy, like, you know those, how there's so many rides with those weird rustic looking faces on them that are meant to be kid friendly but are actually kind of terrifying because of the proportions that they use? Yeah, that's what I was going for with this. So I made it one of those bug roller coaster things with the faces at the end and the exaggerated facial proportions to make it look uncanny. I also gave it some airbrushed blush to tie it in all together, but not actual, like, airbrush. It was made with alcohol markers. But to amp up the creepiness factor, and to go along with the abandoned setting, I also wanted this roller coaster to be gross, rusty, and falling apart, which is why it only has one antenna and one hole for its nose. I was originally going to draw a nose as a small black thing, but then I thought a hole where the nose used to be would be creepier, so I went with that. Looking back, if this thing had a nose, I think I'd want it to look something like Mr. Noseybonk's nose, but less long. Yeah. To achieve the rusted look, I used my old Mocha Artist Loft marker whose brush tip was frayed apart and whose ink was nearly dry to create a nice, random, and sporadic texture. I also used a mix of fresh and juicy red kind of color marker and a colorless blender on top of that to create a rough texture of rust, as well as a brown pencil crayon to finish it off. I'm really happy with how the rust turned out. Just goes to show that even damaged art supplies can still be useful. Artist Loft markers are more likely to fray their tips than some others brands, if I remember correctly. Like, I remember I once bought a brand new yellow marker, and a little bit later, after I barely even used it, the tip looked like it exploded. I don't even know how it happened, but it was like all frayed apart and there was like yellow ink everywhere. But the majority of the ink was still inside the marker, so I decided to keep it. It wasn't good for fine coloring, but for blending in larger areas, it was still pretty useful. Anywho, I was really nervous about ruining the drawing by accidentally messing up on this rust, but in the end I think the textures turned out great. Speaking of ruining a drawing through accidents, I was also extremely nervous about creating the background. I was so happy about how my nightmare fuel turned out that I almost didn't want to finish the drawing traditionally. I thought about doing the background and foreground digitally, so I wouldn't need to worry about ruining it. I ended up doing this, but not for the final piece, only as a mock-up slash failsafe in case I did ruin the drawing. I wanted the grass to overlap the coaster cart for the foreground, and I didn't know if that would work with alcohol markers, especially considering how much ink I already poured all over this page. I knew it would turn out transparent, so I made the mock-up first just in case my drawing went belly side up, and I would have a digital version to go back and fix and make it an actual proper drawing. It also made a good reference to figure out what I wanted to do for sure, and just to make sure I kept on track with how I made my drawing. So with that mock-up made, I went to my traditional drawing and started drawing the grass. At first it wasn't looking too good for the poor piece of paper, but after I caked on a whole lot of alcoholic art supplies as well as some pencil crayons, I feel like I was able to create some very nice grass textures. Clearly, drowning my creations in alcohol was the perfect solution to my problem. Unfortunately, I wouldn't be able to get the lens blur effect or add too much highlights to the grass because of the way that I drew it, and if I could, that's something I would want to change about this. I would also want to add more kinds of plants and plants growing on the roller coaster, but for now I think I'm good with how this turned out. But anyhow, what do you guys think? Have any questions, comments, or concerns? Feel free to let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear your input. Also, if you're new to this channel and like what you see, don't forget to leave a like, and please do feel free to check out my other videos. I do speed paints, animations, and more, and though you haven't seen this much in this video, I also draw lots and lots of dragoons. If you really like what you see, then why not subscribe and ring-a-ding-ding that notification bell below to get notifications for when I release new videos onto my channel. I hope you all enjoyed this video and have a great day. God bless, and I will see you all next time. Bye-bye.